AI never sleeps, and this week has been absolutely insane. We have a new real-time video generator which you can even edit. For example, you can drag your mouse around to control the movement in real time. This new open source model is crazy. It even beats the top closed models out there like GPT-5. We have a new AI that can read your mind and reconstruct exactly what you're seeing with incredible detail. Bytedance drops a new open source video generator plus a new deepfake generator. We have a new family of open source models for geospatial research. So this can help analyze things like deforestation, wildfires, urbanization, and more. This might be the next big thing in AI. Instead of processing each word as tokens, this AI model uses a continuous vector, which means it can process way faster. We have some ridiculous humanoid robot demos and a lot more, so let's jump right in. First up, Bytedance releases a new AI tool called Bindweave. This basically allows you to upload any reference photo of a person or object and insert them in any video. For example, you can upload a photo of all these different characters, and just with a text prompt, you can generate a photo of them doing anything. Notice that the face fidelity is also very good. Like, this actually looks like the input photo, even though it's only given one image. So this is super impressive. Now, in addition to just uploading one photo, you can actually upload multiple photos of different people or backgrounds or objects. So for example, here we can upload these two people plus this background, and here is what we get. Or you can upload these three ladies and get them to dance together like this. Or here's another example where we can upload these two people plus this background with a sofa, and here's what we get. Notice that the details of their faces plus the sofa and the background are all very consistent. Here are a few more examples for your reference. So as you can see, with this Bindweave tool, you can create videos of anyone doing anything in any environment. This gives you ultimate flexibility. Here are some more examples. Not only can you add in people or backgrounds, but you can also add in objects such as this football or this book, or you can also add in this cat, or you can also get people to wear pieces of clothing. Again, the quality of these generations are really good and cinematic, and all the elements do look like the reference images. Now, if you compare Bindweave with other similar tools, such as Vase and Phantom, which I've gone over before, notice that, on average, Bindweave scores the highest. The awesome thing is, if you scroll up to the top of the page, they've already released the code to this. So if you click on this GitHub repo, here it contains all the instructions on how to use it, plus on Hugging Face, they've indeed released the Bindweave model. Note that this is based off of WAN 14b, plus this is 66 gigabytes in size, so you're gonna have a hard time fitting this on like a consumer grade GPU. But because this is open source, I'm sure the community is gonna create more quantized or compressed versions of this in the future. But note that for now, it's probably hard for you to run this locally unless you have some insane GPU. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Also this week, Alibaba releases a pretty useful tool called UniLumos. And this basically allows you to place a new character in a video onto a new background, and it would automatically relight that character so that the colors match and blend in seamlessly with the background. So here are some examples for your reference. On the left is the original video. The top row contains various different backgrounds where we need to place the character. And so after plugging it through this Lumos custom, notice that it's able to change the colors, the contrast, the white balance of the characters so that they blend in seamlessly with the new background. You know, before, in order to do this, you need to like mask out the character and then manually drag the different color sliders like brightness, contrast, white balance, saturation, etc. Like, what a hassle. But with this AI tool, it automatically handles everything for you. And if you compare this with other video relighting models, notice that in terms of quality and temporal consistency, this Lumos model outperforms the rest. It's also way faster, so if you compare this Lumos model with the other competitors, apparently this is able to generate videos 76 times faster. The awesome thing is they've released this already, so if you scroll down a bit, this contains all the instructions on how to download and run this locally on your computer. All the links and info are on this page, so if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, this AI is pretty wacky. It's called BrainIT, and apparently this is an AI that can scan your brain and kind of read what you're thinking of and reconstruct that image. So here are some examples where on the left is the image that the user sees, and then basically they would get this BrainIT AI to scan the person's brain activity. And then from that, the AI will reconstruct the image. And note how similar that image is compared to the original image. It's important to note that the AI has never seen the original image. All it's doing is scanning the person's brainwaves and then reconstructing an image from that. So it's kind of like it can read your mind. Here are some other examples for your reference. Notice that it doesn't just detect, for example, that person is thinking of a jet. It's even able to detect like the direction it's flying to, plus the overall shape and details of the jet. Same with this motorcycle race, like it's able to even detect like the tilt angle and the overall composition of the image. Same with this hotel room. That's pretty insane. Same with like this one over here, it's able to detect approximately the same pose of the original image. This one is even more impressive, so it's even able to detect the poses of all three characters. Now, there are some discrepancies with the background and the colors of their clothing, but this is still very impressive how it's able to just analyze someone's brain activity and kind of estimate and generate a complete image based on what they're seeing. Really quickly, here's the architecture behind it and how it works. So this BrainIT is essentially a transformer model which is trained to analyze this brain activity, or more specifically fMRI signals. So these brainwaves are sent through this transformer and it's able to parse out and detect some high-level semantic features, so for example what the image represents, but also some lower-level structural features. This is basically like the rough layout of the image, like the composition, where people are standing, etc. So both these outputs are then merged through this diffusion model, which is in charge of generating the predicted image, and here is what you get. And this two-branch approach allows BrainIT to create images that closely resemble what the person actually saw. And if you compare BrainIT with other similar competitor models, you can see it's not even close. So in terms of predicting the image, especially the overall composition and the orientation of all the objects in the image, you can see that BrainIT just predicts things a lot better than the other models. Here are some other examples for your reference. Notice that for some of these predictions, the other models don't even come close, but BrainIT is actually really good at predicting, the overall composition of the image and where objects are placed within the image. Here are some other benchmark scores for your reference. Basically, the takeaway here is that BrainIT outcompetes most of these models across most of these benchmarks. As you can see, the best performer is highlighted in bold. If you scroll up to the top of the page, for now they've only released a technical paper on this, but it does say the code is coming soon. If I click on this, it just takes me back to this page, so there's no GitHub repo or anything yet, but it looks like they are planning to release this, which is great. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, this AI is very useful for geospatial researchers out there. So this is called OlmoEarth by the Allen Institute, and this is what they call an Earth Observation Foundation model. This is essentially an AI model that's trained on like 10 terabytes of Earth data, including satellite imagery, radar, environmental sensor data, and contextual maps. So after feeding this and training it on a ton of data, OlmoEarth is now able to basically analyze all this geospatial Earth data and transform this into actionable insights. So currently this OlmoEarth family includes 4 different sizes. We have this V1 Nano, which is 1.4 million parameters. This is not even a billion. And then V1 Tiny, which is 6.2 million parameters. And this can even be small enough to run on like most edge devices. And then we have this one, V1 Base, which is 90 million parameters. And then V1 Large, which is 300 million parameters. But I mean, even this one can be run on most consumer-grade GPUs. Now, with this AI model, which is trained on so much Earth observation data, you can use it to do a ton of real-world applications. For example, detecting deforestation in the Amazon, or assessing wildfire risk, or predicting typhoons, or classifying different ecosystems across the globe, just to name a few examples. And if you look at this chart, it outperforms many other competitors, some of which are very specialized and commercial models. So it delivers state-of-the-art results in a ton of things like segmentation or classification, as well as detecting objects. Now, the Allen Institute has a really nice history of actually open sourcing and releasing their models, and they've done the same for OlmoEarth. So if you scroll down here and you click on this link, this actually takes us to their GitHub repo, and here it contains the links to all the models, plus instructions on how to download and run this. So if you're in like geospatial research, this is currently one of the best open source AI models that you can use to analyze geospatial data. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. In humanoid robot news, this Chinese EV company called Xpeng has released their latest robot called Iron. Now, I don't see why this is such a big deal. I mean, from just a quick glance, this seems like any other humanoid Oh my, what do we have here? Now this is a really nice and sleek design. I especially like the curvature. Like, this is just so perfect. Anyways, let's move on to the specs of this. By the way, if you haven't heard of Xpeng, they're like the Tesla of China. So they primarily make electric cars, but like Tesla, they've recently expanded to developing humanoid robots as well. And this Iron robot is their flagship robot. Now this is 178 centimeters tall. This weighs 70 kilograms, and it's built with what they call a humanoid spine, bionic muscles, and flexible synthetic skin. So this looks and feels a lot more human. Plus, it has a hand with 22 degrees of freedom for incredible dexterity. In fact, its external skin is designed to feel warmer and more natural than traditional robots. And this is supposed to enhance its presence in customer support, but come on, I think we all know where we're going with this. Now, if you think this demo is fake, I know a ton of people think there might be an actual person inside wearing this robot suit. Well, here's a video debunking that thought. So they actually cut apart some of the skin to show you the legs. So this is indeed 100% robot and 0% human. There's no human inside wearing a suit. By the way, here's another video of it walking around, this time without any other skin or outer layer, and as you can see, the design of this is way more meticulous. The way it walks and moves is just so damn lifelike. Like, this is the most natural moving robot I've seen so far. Whereas if you look at other robots like the Tesla or Figure or even the Unitree, they just have a very robotic, rigid vibe to it. Whereas this one moves a lot more naturally. Anyways, keep this robot on your radar. I think our dream of catgirl robots isn't too far away now. In other humanoid robot news, we have a new demo by Unitree Robotics. This time it's showing how fast and precise its teleoperation capabilities are right now. Now, teleoperation isn't new. This is where you can control the movements of a robot remotely using like a VR headset or by moving your own body. But usually there's some latency involved, so it's not like real time, plus the movements are pretty lackluster. But here, as you can see, teleoperation has improved dramatically already. So you can even like remotely kick the soccer ball around, you can do kung fu, and the latency is super low. This is essentially real time. And as you can see, this is full body coordination. You're not just moving its hands or its torso. You can even like get two robots to fight like this. And note that all the time the robot remains balanced, which is historically very hard to do. Now, instead of just getting robots to fight or do kung fu, here are some other more useful household chores you can get a robot to do via teleoperation. Honestly, this is way more impressive than the Neo 1X robot demo, which we had last week, which moved so slowly it was kind of painful to watch. But here, everything is way faster, and as you can see, the Unitree robot doesn't just dance or do kung fu. It can definitely also do household chores, at least via teleoperation. This is an even trickier task where it needs to hold and balance this tray and not spill the water, but it's able to execute this very well. On my channel, I featured so many different AI models and tools, it can be very overwhelming. What if you can use all of these models all in one platform? And that brings us to ChatLLM by Abacus AI, the sponsor of this video. ChatLLM is an all-in-one platform for you to use the best AI models out there. You can seamlessly switch between different models in your chats. Plus, you can also use all the top image generators out there, as well as the top video models out there, all in one integrated platform. And they're usually very quick to add a model to their site once it comes out. Plus, if you're coding something, they have a really useful artifacts feature so that you can preview your generation side by side. Plus, they have a deep agent feature which can do some really complex tasks all autonomously, like creating PowerPoints, websites, and research reports. It's gonna supercharge your productivity. Best of all, you can access all of these AI models and image and video generators and Deep Agent for only $10 a month. This is way cheaper than if you paid for each tool separately. Definitely check out ChatLLM that comes with Deep Agent in the description below. Next up, this is crazy. The team behind Kimi is at it again. If you haven't heard of Kimi, this was previously one of the best open source non-thinking models out there. But this week, they've just released Kimi K2 Thinking, and this not only matches the best closed models out there, but it even beats them in some cases. So here are some specs. This has 1 trillion parameters, but only 32 billion parameters are activated. So not only is this like super performant and intelligent, but it's also very efficient. And this is a mixture of experts models, so think of it as like a team of agents working together to help you solve a problem. And this has a context length of 256 tokens, which is a standard size for most of the top models out there. Now, Kimi K2 is designed to be especially good at agentic coding and reasoning. So the really unique feature about Kimi K2 is that it can perform these multi-step reasoning and autonomous tasks using many steps. So here it says Kimi K2 Thinking can execute up to 200 to 300 sequential tool calls without human interference. Basically, it can do a series of steps calling different tools for like 300 steps, all autonomously. This is a really long reasoning and thinking process. Not only that, but it reasons coherently across hundreds of steps to solve complex problems. Now, here are some benchmark scores for your reference. In terms of agentic reasoning and agentic search, it even beats the best closed models out there like GPT-5 High and Claude Sonnet 4.5 Thinking. These are the top models from OpenAI and Anthropic. Same with this one here. Here is Humanity's Last Exam. This is basically a test on some really obscure scientific knowledge. Historically, it's been really hard for even the top AI models to score well. So you can see like GPT-5 High and Claude 4.5 have scored pretty low. But as you can see, Kimi K2 easily beats these two models. Now, in terms of agentic coding benchmarks, first of all, it's important to note that Anthropic has designed Claude to really max out the software engineering benchmarks. So Claude is actually not designed to do well in other subjects like science or academic research, but it's really good at coding. And so it's no surprise that Anthropic's Claude would perform the best here. However, as you can see, Kimi K2 is not far behind. And at least in terms of competitive programming, it even beats Claude by a huge margin. Here are some other benchmarks for your reference. Notice that for competitive math, it completely destroys the benchmark, scoring 100%, but so has GPT-5 and Grok 4. Here are some other competitive math benchmarks, and as you can see, Kimi K2 also scores the highest here. For agentic tasks, Kimi K2 also, on average, scores the highest, which are highlighted in blue. So this is an absolute beast of a model. And the awesome thing is, you can try it for free right now. So it's just kimi.com, and here is where you can select K2, and then over here is where you can enable thinking mode. So this is exactly the same as ChatGPT or Grok or any other AI chat interface. I'll probably do a full review video on Kimi K2 Thinking, but for now, just to show you a really quick example, here, let's feed it a pretty tricky prompt. We have a child diagnosed with this very rare disease with minimal information. Research all current treatments, experimental therapies, and management strategies. Organize everything in a detailed report. So I'm going to turn on web search and thinking, and then click generate. And let's see what that gives us. It first pulls up all these web pages and it's reading through all of them to find the information it needs. All right, afterwards, here is our final report. So notice that I haven't even turned on agent mode or anything. This is just a standard text chat mode. And as you can see, this is a really comprehensive report. So it first starts off with an executive summary, and then it lists out the current FDA-approved treatments. Everything is super detailed and up to date. And then afterwards, here are some experimental and investigational therapies, yada, yada, yada. Again, everything is just very detailed. And then here are some comprehensive management strategies. And then afterwards, here is some prevalence and epidemiological data. So it gives us some stats on this disease. Plus, here is a biomarker diagnostic chart. It's able to actually create a table and break down all this information. And then we also have this diagnostic flowchart, which is pretty cool. It doesn't have like this flowchart creation tool, so what it decided to do is actually just code this up using text, which is pretty smart. And then here we have some genetic counseling protocol for families, yada, yada, yada. And then afterwards we have conclusion and future directions, plus it lists the references at the end. So this is a very thorough and comprehensive report. It was able to do this in just a few seconds. And if you look at this independent leaderboard by artificial analysis, notice that Kimi K2 is actually ranked number 2, just one tiny point below GPT-5 High. So it's not an exaggeration to say open source has already caught up. There is currently no moat, like this even beats Grok 4 and Claude 4.5 Sonnet. That's how good Kimi K2 Thinking is. Now, this is open source, so you can potentially download it and run it locally on your computer, as I'll go over in a second, but if you choose to run it through their native API, this is also way cheaper than the closed competitors such as Claude 4.5 and Grok 4, which are almost like 6 times more expensive. So this is an insanely capable and efficient and cheap model. Now the awesome thing is, as with the previous Kimi models, this Kimi K2 Thinking is also open source. So they've already released this on Hugging Face. If you click on Files and Versions, this is a huge model. This is 1 trillion parameters. So the total size is roughly 594 gigabytes. So it's not going to run on like consumer grade GPUs. You're going to need some really professional GPU clusters, or you can also rent some GPU cloud in order to deploy this. But here's the thing. Here's the advantage of this being open source. If you're a business or you need to work with some super sensitive data, you can't use the top models out there like GPT or Grok. And that's because, first of all, these are closed source. You don't know how these models actually work. Plus, you're forced to use it through their platform or API. In other words, all your chats would go through the servers of OpenAI or xAI or Anthropic if you use their models. So they potentially have access to all your chats and data. This is of course not ideal if you're working with like really sensitive information. So if that's you, then the only option is to run these open source models locally or on premise, where it never touches the cloud or the server of third-party providers. Anyways, props to the Kimi team for releasing this. This is an absolute beast, and I can't believe they actually released an open source model that's now ranked number 2, even beating some of the best closed proprietary models out there. If you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main announcement page in the description below. Also this week, Google announces something pretty crazy. We've all heard of the top AI companies like xAI and OpenAI scrambling to build these massive data centers with a ton of GPUs so that they can have as much compute as possible. So for example, here's a photo of xAI's Colossus data center, which they're planning to house like over 200,000 GPUs. Now, what if instead of just building this on the ground, why not send GPUs up in space? Well, that's exactly what Google is planning. So this is called Project Suncatcher, and here they're planning to create these solar-powered satellite constellations with TPUs or tensor processing units, which is like Google's version of GPUs that are specialized for doing AI and machine learning. And basically, they're just going to shoot this up in outer space, and everything is going to be solar-powered. Now, you might be wondering, why space? The thing is, space offers almost constant sunlight, allowing solar panels to produce up to 8 times more energy than on Earth. Plus, note that TPUs and GPUs produce a lot of heat when they're running. So for these massive data centers on Earth, they require some really sophisticated like water cooling systems in order to keep everything from overheating. But instead, if you send these GPUs to outer space, well, this removes the need for any cooling. So the plan here is to basically launch these clusters of small satellites in low Earth orbit. and each cluster is going to carry some Google TPUs. And these satellites will communicate with each other using these ultra-fast free space optical links. So together, these clusters will basically form a distributed computing network, which can be used to train and run AI models. Now, this all sounds pretty crazy, and of course, there's going to be major technical hurdles. So that includes like maintaining these tight satellite formations and maintaining the connection and communication between them using these optical links. This is much easier said than done. You also need to protect the hardware from space radiation, which is like many times more severe than the radiation on Earth. Anyways, here they say Google plans to launch 2 prototype satellites by early 2027. So this isn't like a decade away. They're actually going to do this in like 2 years. And if this test is successful, then this could lead to potentially some huge AI infrastructure in outer space. Anyways, that's a really high-level summary of this. There's a lot of pretty interesting technical details about this, so if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, this AI is really neat. It's called MotionStream, and this can create videos in real time. Not only that, but you can also like drag your mouse around the canvas to control the motion of things in the video. So here are some examples of this in action. For example, you can first get it to generate this video in real time, and notice that on the left, if you drag your mouse around, the wave moves according to your trajectory. And it renders everything in real time, like there's very minimal latency. So here it says, this can output videos at 29 frames per second with like 0.4 seconds of latency, which is essentially real time. And you can do this on a single NVIDIA H100 GPU. Here's another example where you can first add a grid on your canvas and set that to static. And if you set it to static, that means that particular part of the video should not move. And then if you drag another grid on there and you move that part around, it moves the dog according to that green grid. But notice that the red grid remains stationary. Or here you can add another grid on the dog's nose and on the right arm, and this will basically make those things fixed. And then if you drag another green grid on the left arm, notice that it only moves the left arm. So this allows you to really micro control which objects should move and not move in the video. And again, notice that it's generating everything in real time. Here's another example for your reference. When you drag this elephant around, it's actually moving its entire body. Like, the physics are all correct. It actually kind of understands the anatomy of an elephant. The motions are quite seamless. Or here's another example where we can drag this cup around to control where the cup is placed in the video. And notice the physics are all kind of correct. So if you move the cup elsewhere, notice that the liquid also spills on the plate and then on the table. So that part is correct, but I guess there is one huge error with this, which is there seems to be like an infinite amount of tea. Like, it doesn't stop spilling. Really quickly, here's the architecture behind it. So it consists of this teacher model and then a student model. So the teacher model basically generates high quality videos, but it's slower. And the generations from this teacher video are then used to train the student model, which is faster and can run in real time. By the way, notice that as with most open source AI video tools, this one also uses Alibaba's Wan, which is like the leading open source video generator out there. So this isn't like a completely new video model. This is just like a framework built on top of Alibaba Wan. Nevertheless, this is still very impressive. I can see how in the near future, people can just drag their mouse across a video and control everything in real time. Anyways, if you scroll up to the top of the page, they have released a GitHub repo, but here it says the code is currently under the company's internal review for open sourcing. We have not received a firm timeline, and the release may or may not occur depending on the outcome of the review. Honestly, since this is coming from Adobe, I wouldn't really count on them open sourcing anything. But anyways, if you're interested in reading further, they've released the technical paper, plus a lot more examples on this page. So I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, Tencent releases this paper, which is quite a huge deal. This might be the next big thing in AI. Here, they've introduced something called Continuous Autoregressive Language Models, or COM for short. You see, how large language models that you and I use today, like ChatGPT or Gemini or Grok or DeepSeek work, is that they basically break down text into tokens. And how they generate the output is that they predict the next most probable word in your sequence one word at a time. This might sound crazy to you. Like, you might think it's got to be way more complicated than that, right? Like, how can we get ChatGPT to write a complete essay for you or write an entire professional research report for you? But actually, behind the scenes, that's what it does. It just predicts the next most probable word, one word at a time, until it finishes your essay or research report or whatever you prompt it. You see, the problem with predicting one word at a time is that it's very computationally inefficient, especially if your input or output is extremely long. The compute required basically increases pretty much exponentially as your sequence length increases. So this traditional way of processing and outputting text is not very efficient. Now, instead of just breaking each word down into tokens and processing that sequence, what COM does is it basically converts this into a continuous vector. And if you compare COM with similar sized transformer models, you can see that it requires way fewer computations, or basically flops, than traditional language models, while maintaining the same performance. Really quickly, here's the architecture behind it. So it first takes your input text and then it uses an autoencoder to basically convert this into a continuous vector. The vector is then passed through this energy-based generative head, and this model uses what they call an energy score to basically evaluate the quality of its predictions and improve its performance. It's similar to like a loss function in a traditional transformer model. Anyways, after plugging it through this head and making the prediction, it's then passed through this decoder to basically convert the vector back into text that you and I can read. Now, the key here is that instead of predicting the next token or the next most probable word, it predicts entire vectors, which could be chunks of words. So this drastically reduces the number of steps to generate text. And because the predictions are vectors, it also avoids some computational limitations from traditional transformers. The awesome thing is they've actually released the code to this. So on this GitHub repo, if you scroll down a bit, this contains all the instructions on how to actually install this and prepare the training data and train this. So you can potentially train this yourself and compare it with similar sized transformer models and see how the quality and efficiency compares. For now, this is just a proof of concept, but it could potentially be the next big thing in AI. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Also this week, Bytedance releases a new open source video generator. It's called Infinity, and unlike previous top video generators like Wan or Hunyuan Video, which are diffusion transformer models, this one is what they call an autoregressive model. It's kind of similar to how GPT image works. So currently they've actually released a Discord for you to join where you can generate videos with Infinity for free. So if we click on this takes me here. So I'm supposed to join this random research lab, which sounds super sketchy, but let's join anyway. And then up here is where you can use Infinity either for text to video or image to video. So let's look at some examples. Here we have a night skyline view of downtown Manhattan with a big cruise driving by. And here's what we get. Note that the quality isn't great. I think the generations here are only 480p. Here's another example for your reference. Honestly, the quality and the details aren't great. You can see some considerable noise and warping going on, especially with the face and fingers and other details of the video. Here's the Sora Tokyo Lady prompt. Again, notice that it's not really good with the details. Her face is messed up. The details of everything in the background are also messed up and warping over time. It's not very consistent. So this is more of a proof of concept. The really nice advantage of these autoregressive models is that, unlike Wan or Hunyuan, which are diffusion transformer models, this one generates way faster. So here it says it can generate a 5-second 720p video approximately 10 times faster than leading diffusion methods. And if you look at these benchmarks, it's actually not bad. So in terms of autoregressive models, this is by far the best performing one. Now, if you compare this with the leading diffusion models like Hunyuan Video and Wan 2.1, notice that Wan 2.1 on average scores the highest or the second highest, which are underlined. And of course, we also have Wan 2.2 now, which is even better. So Infinity Star isn't as good as Wan 2.1, but out of these autoregressive models, Infinity Star does score the highest. Anyways, the nice thing is they've released the models and the code to this already. So Down here are all the instructions on how you can install and try this out locally on your computer. Notice that this is 8 billion parameters, and if I click on this 720p version, notice that this is like 35 gigabytes in size. So autoregressive models are known to be a bit larger than diffusion transformer models, so this isn't going to run on like most consumer grade GPUs. Plus, as I showed you in some of the demos, the quality isn't even state of the art. So at least for me, I don't think it's worth spending time to try this out. But anyways, this is one of the leading autoregressive video models out there. So if you want to play with it and fine tune it yourself, I'll link to this main page in the description below. And that sums up all the highlights in AI this week. Let me know in the comments what you think of all of this. Which piece of news was your favorite, and which tool are you most looking forward to trying out? As always, I will be on the lookout for the top AI news and tools to share with you. So if you enjoyed this video, remember to like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content. Also, there's just so much happening in the world of AI every week, I can't possibly cover everything on my YouTube channel. So to really stay up to date with all that's going on in AI, be sure to subscribe to my free weekly newsletter. The link to that will be in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.